After 6 years of relationship, Aaron broke up with Emily while embracing his new love. Emily, without arguing or complaining, packed her suitcase, took a hefty breakup settlement, and decisively moved out. His friends began to tease. How long do you think Emily can hold out this time? Because everyone in the city knew how deeply she loved Aaron, so much so that she had no self-respect. No, and within 3 days, she would surely come back begging for forgiveness. However, 3 months passed, and she still hadn't returned. The proud Aaron finally lowered himself, saying, "Emily, how long are you going to make a scene? Enough already." Later on, he would say, "Emily, I miss you. Then, if I died, would you even look at me?" But the voice on the other end let out a low laugh. "Aaron, your pity play won't work. Just save it. I'm looking for Emily. Give her the phone." "Sorry. My girlfriend is tired and just fell asleep." Years later, so many people came and went in her life. Yet not a single spot belonged to him anymore. All their mutual friends knew how crazily Emily loved Aaron. She lived for him, having no life or space of her own, wanting to revolve around him 24 hours a day. Each time they broke up, within 3 days, she would come back obediently seeking reconciliation. Anyone could utter the words break up, except for Emily Woodland. When Aaron came in with his new love, the private room fell into an eerie silence for 5 seconds. Emily's hand, which was peeling an orange, froze. "Why is everyone silent? What are you staring at?" Emily, her friends cast word glances, but Aaron casually embraced the woman and sat directly on the sofa. "Happy birthday," Channing. It was brazen and nonchalant. Emily stood up. It was Channing's birthday, and she didn't want to make a scene. "I'll go to the restroom." As she closed the door, she heard the conversation already flowing inside. "Aaron, Emily is here. Didn't I notify you beforehand? Why did you bring her?" "Aaron, this time you've gone far. It doesn't affect me." Aaron let go of the delicate waist of the woman and lit a cigarette. In the rising white mist, he looked pleased, like a roguish playboy. Emily didn't hear the rest of their words as the door closed behind her. She calmly finished in the restroom, and while retouching her makeup, she looked at her reflection in the mirror and suddenly smiled wryly. So ugly. Living like this felt miserable. Emily took a deep breath and quietly made a decision. But when she returned to the private room and pushed the door open, the scene before her made her grip the doom tightly, almost breaking down. Aaron was kissing the woman's tender lips, their saliva dampening the tissue between them. Laughter erupted around them. Aaron sure knows how to have fun. They're kissing. They are kissing. The atmosphere is so good. Why don't you give us a peck? Emily's hand gripping the do-rub trembled. This was the man she had loved for 6 years, and at that moment, all she felt was irony. "Stop playing around," someone whispered, indicating the door. Everyone turned to look at her in unison. "Emily, you're back. We're just messing around." But Aaron interrupted his explanation, glancing over nonchalantly. "Emily, since you're here, let's just lay it all out. Go ahead. It's been pretty pointless all these years. We've long lost the spark between us." Emily clenched her fingers, her nails digging into her palm. Yet she felt no pain. Is 6 years of love ended with just a wordless, "Carlin is a good girl. I want to give her a title." Emily numbly nodded. "Okay, even though we broke up, we're still friends. If you ever have trouble in the city, you can still reach out to me." "No need." Emily forced out a light smile. "Let's make it clean. It's only fair to the girl." Aaron raised his eyebrow, seemingly surprised. "Channing." Emily turned to the birthday girl. "Happy birthday. Have fun. Everyone, they'll be leaving now." I peeled the oranges on the table. "Everyone enjoy them. Don't waste them." Aaron didn't like fruit, except for oranges, but he was picky and would only eat them after removing every bit of white pith. Over the years, to ensure he got his daily dose of vitamins, Emily would peel them, clean off the pith, and present them to him. When Aaron was happy, he would hold her and tease. "My girlfriend is too good. How come she's so virtuous? Are you hoping I'll marry you?" He always knew what she wanted but never mentioned giving it to her. "I'll have the driver take you." "No need. I've called a ride." Emily, let me walk you to the door. Emily waved him off and turned to leave. Aaron, look at this chaos. I think Emily's really angry this time. No way. No way. Seriously, how many times have they fought? Every time. She comes back after a few days, and at the next gathering, it's like nothing happened. This time I bet 5 days. I'll bet 6 days. Aaron glanced at the still open door of the private room, smiling coldly. I'll bet 3 hours. She'll be back looking for me. Aaron wins for sure. Everyone knows Emily loves him madly. Why hasn't a single woman ever been this devoted to me? Just you? Get lost. By the time Emily returned to the villa, it was already past midnight. She spent half an hour packing her things. She had lived here for 3 years, and now a small suitcase was all she needed to take away. In the wardrobe, those high and ready-to-wear clothes that had never been worn, along with the jewelry she had never worn, remained untouched. The only regret she felt was the wall filled with professional books, but it was all right. The content was all in her mind, so the medium was that important. Her gaze swept over the vanity, and Emily walked over to pull open a drawer. Inside lay a check for $50 million. Beneath the check was a Docum Trust's contract for land lot 35. No, 7th Fu. East. Although it was in the suburb, it was conservatively estimated to be worth $20 million. Aaron had signed both items, which he had left behind when they were in a quarrel about breaking up. They had been sitting in the drawer ever since. He was certain that Emily wouldn't dare to accept them, as doing so would mean the end of their relationship. $17 million for 6 years? Emily suddenly felt that it was still loss at all. How many women could achieve so much from their youth? She packed both items into her bag. If he offered them, why not take them? The relationship was over, but at least she still had money. She was the foolish, like female protagonist in those wealthy romance novels who treated money like dirt. Hey, is this the cleaning company? Do you accept urgent orders? Yes, a thorough cleaning. You'll pay extra. Emily left her keys at the entrance and hopped into a taxi, heading straight to her best friend's house. On the way, the cleaning lady called again to confirm. Miss, are you sure you don't want any of these things? Yeah, just handle it as you see fit. She hung up after saying that. When Aaron got home, it was already late at night. The cleaning crew had finished and left long ago. The overwhelming scent of perfume made his head ache. He loosened his collar, intending to sit on the sofa for a moment, but ended up falling. The next morning, he woke to the familiar sounds of dishes clattering in the kitchen. He threw off the blanket and sat up, rubbing his temples as he reached for his water cup. To his surprise, his hand met empty air, stopping just above the coffee table. He curled his lips in annoyance. Everyone had come back. The blanket was covering him, but no one had prepared hangover tea. Had this incomplete resistance not grown tiresome over the years? Aaron stood up. You'd better. So, you're awake? Wine? Please wash up first. Just wait a couple of minutes, and you can have breakfast. By the way, were you warm enough while you were sleeping? I turned on the heating and, not feeling at ease, added an extra blanket. Yeah, at the dining table. Aaron asked, why isn't there any millet porridge? You mean the stomach-nourishing porridge? Stomach-nourishing porridge? Yeah. It's the one Miss Emily often makes. With millet. Yam. Lily and jujube cooked together, right? Oh, I didn't have time to prepare it. Just the lily, koi's seed, and jujube need to be soaked overnight. And you have to get up early the next morning to stew it. Plus, timing is crucial. I don't have the patience to keep an eye on the heat like Miss Emily does. It won't taste the same. Aaron, get me some beef sauce. Coming. So, why does this taste off? Aaron glanced at the bottle. Doesn't taste right either. That jar is empty. We only have this kind. Go buy 2 cans at the supermarket later and keep them at home. I can't find it. When Ma left awkwardly, Miss Emily made this herself. I can't do it. Bang. Hey, so, aren't you eating? Uh-huh. Wang Ma looked at the man's back as he went upstairs, puzzled. Why did he suddenly get angry? Lazy pig. Yeah. Emily turned over, not opening her eyes. Don't make noise. Let me sleep a bit longer. Alva, who had finished her makeup and was picking a bag, chimed in. It's almost 8. Don't you have to go back to make breakfast for your young master Dong? Emily occasionally stayed over before, but she always hurried back before dawn to make health porridge for Aaron, who had a weak stomach. Alva found this ridiculous. What was wrong with him? Why couldn't he just order takeout on his phone? Why did he have to trouble her? It was just a bad habit he had developed. Emily was sound asleep when she heard this, waving her hand, not going back. We broke up. How many days do you plan to take to break up this time? Then you sleep slowly. Breakfast is on the table. I'm going to work. Don't worry about my meal tonight. Just close the balcony window when you leave. Emily woke up hungry, eating the sandwiches her best friend made while looking at the bright sunlight outside. She couldn't remember the last time she slept in naturally. After finishing breakfast, which was more like lunch, she changed into a new outfit and headed straight to the bank. First, she cashed the 50 million check. Of course, she felt reassured only once she had the money in her hand. Then she went to another bank next door. I'd like to speak with your private banking account manager. I want to deposit 10 million. Finally, the bank manager stepped in, offering a decent annual interest rate. Emily asked for an additional 2 points, and they ultimately reached a pleasant agreement. Using the same routine, Emily went to 2 other banks and deposited another 10 million in each. Each bank offered a higher interest rate than the last. Exiting the last bank, Emily found herself holding black cards from 3 banks, with deposits of 30 million and an additional 20 million in liquid assets. Now a little wealthy woman. This hand. The division isn't bad. She had become rich overnight. In a way. Passing by a bustling hair salon, Emily pushed the door open and signed up for a 2,000 yuan card to skip the queue. Sitting in front of the mirror and looking at her wavy brown hair, she showed her first hint of disdain. Beautiful lady. Your hair looks great. Like a doll. She had kept her long hair in curls because Aaron liked it that way. He loved to run his fingers through her hair every time they rolled in the sheets. But having beautiful curls meant spending more time maintaining them. Emily smiled slightly at the stylist. Please cut it short, straighten it, and dye it black. No matter how beautiful a doll was, it was still just a toy. Whoever wanted to be one could do so. She wouldn't join them anymore. After leaving the hair salon, Emily felt light and free. She noticed a unicorn nearby that was having a sale. So she went in and picked a white t-shirt and a pair of jeans, which she wore out directly. They matched her sports shoes perfectly today. As Emily walked along, she found herself outside the gate of B University, watching students riding bicycles in and out under the setting sun. She was momentarily lost in thought. Cleveland. Over here a young boy passed by Emily. What's everyone doing here? We wanted to visit Professor David. So Cleveland said. With so many people, the hospital won't let us in. How about this? 2 representatives from the biopharmaceutic major can come with me. Biopharmaceutic. Emily's eyes narrowed slightly as she stepped forward quickly. Who did you just say was sick? Cleveland stuttered as he looked at the pretty girl in front of him. Professor David. David? Which hospital? Xijing. Thank you. Oh, it's your major. Junior? Are you also a student of Professor David? The boy's question faded into the background as Emily strode away. When she returned to her apartment, Emily's mood was turbulent. The little old lady who would jump up and hit people on the head when angry was sick? How serious was it? She opened her contact list and found the number saved as Edith. After hesitating several times, she ultimately lacked the courage to dial it. She had unhesitatingly given up the opportunity for master's and doctorate program to be with Aaron, for the sake of so-called love of becoming a housewife who revolved around a man. The old lady must be utterly disappointed. Hey, Emily, you're not going back? Alva said in surprise while changing her shoes. Emily twitched the corner of her mouth. Do you want to chase me away? Sia. It's really amazing. You've lasted quite a while this time. I remember the last time you broke up with Aaron. It was less than half an hour before he called you, and you went back obediently. There's porridge in the pot. Serve yourself. Elva's eyes lit up, and she ran into the kitchen to scoop herself a bowl, while drinking. That dog Aaron is really lucky. He can drink this every day, Emily replied, Remember to wash the bowl and pot after you're done. Clean it up. I'm going to sleep first. Hey, are you really not going back? The only response she received was the sound of the bedroom door closing. Alva clicked her tongue. This time, Shus really made it under the same night sky. At the Lingian villa? Aaron. The bank has confirmed that it was Miss Emily herself who came to exchange a 50 million check. And it was at 12:05 p.m. today. Aaron hung up, coldly gazing at the night scenery outside the window. Emily, what new trick are you playing this time? If she thought she could win him back this way, she was probably mistaken. What he decided was non-negotiable. Channing, wanna grab a drink? Half an hour later, Aaron pushed open the private room door, and Channing greeted him with a smile. Aaron, everyone is here. We were just waiting for you. What are we drinking tonight? Aaron walked in, but Channing didn't move and looked behind him. What are you standing there for? Where's Emily? Is she parking? Aaron's expression darkened. Is it hard to find a spot? I can go help. Channing suddenly realized the unpleasant look on Aaron's face. Tut! Aaron, Emily wouldn't still not be back. Would she? It had already been over 3 hours. Aaron shrugged, saying, what's there to go back for? Do you think breaking up is a game? After that, he walked past him and sat down on the sofa. Channing scratched his head. No way. She really left? But soon he shook his head, feeling he was overthinking. While Aaron could certainly break up without hesitation, Emily, everyone in the world might agree to a breakup, but she wouldn't. That was a widely recognized fact in their circle. Aaron, why are you alone? Damien, eager for drama, crossed his arms. You bet 3 hours. And it's already been a day. Aaron smirked. A bet is a bet. What's the penalty? Damien raised an eyebrow. Let's change it up today. No drinking. Call Emily and say in the gentlest tone. Sorry. I was wrong. I love you. Laughter erupted around the room. Channing even snatched Aaron's phone to dial Emily's number. After the ringing, voice responded, sorry. The number you have dialed is temporarily unavailable. What? Blah? Aaron was momentarily stunned. The laughter in the room began to fade as everyone exchanged glances. Channing quickly hung up. Well, maybe it really is unavailable. There's no way Emily would block Aaron unless it rains red from the sky. He felt embarrassed as he said the last part. Damien, deep in thought, said, maybe Emily is serious this time. Aaron snorted softly. Breaking up isn't real. Can it be fake? I don't want to play this game a second time. From now on, whoever dares to mention Emily again won't be my brother. Damien narrowed his eyes, finally squeezing out a sentence. Just don't regret it. Aaron curled his lips, unconcerned. He never regretted his actions. Seeing the Dew quickly tried to lighten the mood. Don't be so serious. Haha, we're all brothers. Morning. 7 o'clock. Alva returned from her morning run and smelled a delicious aroma wafting through the air as she entered. Emily came out of the kitchen holding a bowl of hot porridge, dressed in a bird-patterned dress that revealed her fair, straight leg. She looked stunning even without makeup. Quick, take a shower, eat breakfast after, Alva said. Hey, did you change your hairstyle? Long black hair in a high ponytail? You look so good. Are you planning to go back? Is Aaron coming to pick you up? Can you hope for something good for me? If Aaron is actively coming to pick you up, doesn't that mean he's hoping for you? Alva walked over to the dining table and noticed an extravagant spread. Go take a shower. Emily swatted her hand away. You're filthy. You're double standard. When Aaron uses his hands, why don't you hit him? If there's another chance, he'll definitely hit him. Who would believe you? When Alva finished her shower, Emily was already gone, taking a thermal container with her. Siak clearly made breakfast for me but still didn't forget to pack a portion for the man. What a guy who prioritizes romance over friends. At the West Capitol Hospital, in a single-person ward. David, how are you feeling today? David set down the paper he was holding and pushed up his reading glasses. Dylan, why are you here? Don't move, Dylan said as he quickly stuffed a pillow behind her. Your wound isn't healed yet. Appendicitis, a minor surgery. Just that I'm older now, and my recovery isn't as good. So the doctor kept me here for so many days. By the way, have this year's master's enrollment quotas come down from the school? They have. You have 3. And I have 4. 3. David murmured. What's wrong? Are you still planning to take only 2 this year? Yeah, I'm getting old. I can only take 2. Dylan pouted. Clearly, that spot was specially reserved for her, but she wouldn't admit it. Professor Divina? Professor Dylan is here too? Cleveland entered with 2 junior students, placing fruits and flowers down. We're here to visit the professor. During the small talk, a student mentioned, I heard there's a super talented freshman this year who directly got the qualification for combined bachelor's, master's, and doctoral program. You should know that in the past decade, the School of Life Sciences at B University has had fewer than 3 students admitted directly to doctoral program. Then naturally took the phone away, smiling as he said, you never used to watch these kinds of emotional videos. It's said that this freshman won both gold medals in the International Olympiad in Mathematics and the Computer Olympiad last year and was directly recommended to our school. 2 gold medals? That's not too bad. I remember there was a senior who seemed to be Professor David's student, right? She entered undergraduate school with 4 gold medals in her hand. She had won them all in mathematics, physics, chemistry, and computer science. I think her name was Sue. Something Mian. It's almost time. Dylan interjected timely. You guys should head back to school now. We'll be leaving then. Once outside the ward, the student looked dejected. Cleveland, did I say something wrong? Why do I feel like Professor David and Professor Dylan looked unhappy? Cleveland also wore a puzzled expression. Those students didn't mean any harm. Don't think too much about it. David waved his hand, but his lips trembled uncontrollably, and tears began to pool in his eyes, ultimately falling down his cheek. Shouldn't. But why? Why doesn't she cherish her talent? Dylan said. Don't get too worked up. Dylan, do you know what she told me the last time we met? She said she wanted love. She wants love. She broke my heart. Emily stood at the door of the ward, holding a thermos box, tears streaming down her face as well. I'm sorry, Professor David. In the end, she still didn't have the courage to go in. Leaving the thermos on the nurse's station, this is for Professor David. Please help me pass it on. Thank you. And forget to register your information. Why are you running away? Emily dashed out of the inpatient building, taking deep breaths of fresh air, but that suffocating feeling of guilt still lingered. Emily? A elegantly dressed woman wearing high heels and carrying a classic 5-grid Lady Dear bag approached, dressed in a blazer and a fitted skirt. With straight hair cascading down, she exuded an air of intellect. Fred, Aaron's younger sister. Is it really you? What are you doing at the hospital instead of home? She glanced at the large building in front of her. The inpatient department was probably not where she was visiting obstetric. She breathed a sigh of relief for her mother. If Emily really was pregnant, marrying because of a child, Mrs. Grisella would probably faint from anger. Fred. Emily forced out a smile. Why are your eyes so red? Have you been crying? Emily didn't respond. Did you have another fight with my brother? No. Fred thought she was just being stubborn, and a hint of sympathy showed in her eyes. In fact, she quite liked Emily. She was good-looking and had a nice personality. Unfortunately, she still fell short of the Jung family standard, especially since Mrs. Grisella placed great importance on academic credentials and was only interested in marrying off her son to a high-achieving graduate from a prestigious school. Being with my brother must be tiring, right? He has a bad temper. Just bear with it, Emily replied. Actually, we've already broken up. I have things to do, so I won't chat with you any longer. After saying that, she checked the time and walked toward the building. She was here to visit Professor David. She heard he liked smart and obedient students, so she had dressed up specially today. Whether she could secure the direct doctoral spot depended on this visit. Last night, she had a bit too much to drink, and Channing had called for a late-night outing in the early hours. When Aaron was sent back to the villa by the driver, dawn was just breaking. He had already collapsed onto the bed, feeling overwhelming drowsiness, but still forced himself to take a shower in the bathroom. Emily shouldn't be mad at him now, he thought drowsily. When he opened his eyes again, he pressed his hand against his stomach, crawling out of bed. Me and that name slipped out, and he abruptly stopped. Aaron frowned. She really was something else. Much better than last time. Well, let's see how stubborn she can be. But where are the meds? Aaron rummaged through the living room, combed through every cabinet he could find, but still couldn't locate the spare medicine cabinet at home. He called Wingma. You mean the stomach medicine? It's stored in the medicine cabinet. Aaron's temples throbbed. He took a deep breath. Where's the medicine cabinet? In the drawer of the wardrobe in the bedroom. There are several boxes stocked up. Miss Emily said that when you drink too much and wake up the next day, you're prone to stomach problems. So she put the medicine in the bedroom for easy access. Hello? Hello? Is the young master still on the line? Why did the call disconnect? Aaron walked to the wardrobe and, sure enough, found the medicine cabinet in the drawer. It was filled with 5 boxes of stomach medicine he usually took. After taking the medicine, the pain eased, and his tense nerves gradually relaxed. He pushed the drawer back and absently, when suddenly, the man's movements froze. Jewelry, luxury handbag, all of these were present. But all of Emily's documents were missing from the drawer, including her ID card, passport, degree certificate, and graduation certificate. Looking over at the pile of suitcases in the corner, he noticed one was indeed missing. Aaron stood there, an inexplicable anger surging to the top of his head. Great, just great. Truly great, he repeated great 3 times, nodding as he spoke. Indeed, women shouldn't be spoiled. The more you spoil them, the worse their tempers get. Just then, the sound of a door opening came from downstairs, and Aaron immediately went down. What are you doing here? Fred was changing her shoes and looked somewhat surprised. Who else would it be? Aaron sat down on the sofa, his interest waning. What are you here for? I heard from Wang Ma that your stomach issues flared up. I came to check on you at Mother's command. You know, Fred said as she walked toward the kitchen. I haven't had lunch yet, so I just came to mooch off you. One reason she had a good impression of Emily was that her cooking was simply too good. However, half a minute, La Braro. Why is it so cold in here? Where's Emily? Isn't she home today? She should be here by now at this hour. She usually had dinner ready, waiting for him to come down to eat. And if luck was on her side. Emily. And it's Emily. Aaron rubbed his temple, not wanting to deal with her. Fred came out of the kitchen with a disappointed look. Is she not feeling well? I saw her at the hospital yesterday, and her complexion was good. You saw her at the hospital? Aaron instinctively sat up straighter. Yeah. I went to Shijing Hospital yesterday to visit Professor David and ran into Emily at the entrance of the inpatient building. But I have to tell you, Professor David promised me a direct PhD spot. Aaron frowned. What was she doing at the hospital? Don't ask me. If you don't know, how could I possibly know? Aaron fell silent. Maybe it's not her who's sick. She might just be visiting someone. But I haven't heard that Emily has any friends. Her life is just you. And you, are you done? Fred exclaimed. Wrap it up and leave. I'm still waking up. Aaron got up. Wait, you really want me to leave? Fine. I'm leaving. As Fred put on her shoes, she said angrily. By the way, I have a task. Aaron didn't want to listen at all and headed upstairs. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. West Shore Restaurant. Mom set up a blind date for you. Don't be late. Stop being so annoying. Fred made a face at his back before leaving. She had long been accustomed to such arrangements. After all, being with Emily didn't conflict with finding a suitable marriage partner. Over the years, her brother had attended many such gatherings, although most of the time, it was just going through the motions to appease their mother. After sending Fred away, Aaron went to his study to handle company affairs. Years ago, he had left home to start his own business to escape his family's control. First 3 years had been really tough. He didn't want to accept help from home, and the only person by his side was Emily. Only in the last 2 years had he finally made some progress, establishing his own company and shedding the label of rich kid or spoiled heir. His family's attitude had softened and began to approach him. This shift was evident from how they initially opposed him being with Emily to now turning a blind eye to it. By the time he finished his work, the sun had already set. Outside the window, dusk was settling in, and the lights were starting to come on. Only then did Aaron realize he was hungry. He took out his phone and called his girlfriend. "What are you doing?" On the other end, the phone rang for a while before he heard the girl's low voice. "Hey, I'm sorry. I have class. Can I come find you after?" The way she called him baby made Aaron feel uncomfortable all over. "Yeah, you're busy." He hung up directly and tossed his phone aside. After half a minute, someone called in, but Aaron didn't look at it and continued working. It wasn't until his stomach began to protest that he finally had to leave his study. He had dinner plans with Channing and the others. As he was at the door, the girl sitting there suddenly stood up, turning around with a clean and shy smile. "Carlin? I'm so sorry. I knocked on the door, and you must not have heard, so I had to sit here and wait." She glanced at the suit jacket draped over Aaron's arm. "Are you going out?" Aaron didn't answer. He frowned and asked, "How did you find this place?" Carlin looked a bit guilty. "I asked your friend Channing." No, it was Damien. Aaron replied. "Come in." The girl's eyes lit up again with a smile as she skipped inside, glancing around while complaining playfully. "After you hung up, you didn't answer my call, and I was worried for a long time." Aaron said. "Aren't you supposed to be in class?" "I cut class. My boyfriend is more important." Emily wouldn't do this. Back when he was pursuing her, she just started her freshman year, and her course load was heavy. But she never skipped class for him. Later, when they were together, she was in her senior year with fewer classes, so she gradually found time to spend with him. "Baby, you haven't eaten yet, right? Can you make nourishing stomach porridge?" Aaron asked out of nowhere. "Nourishing stomach porridge?" "No, but I can learn." Declining Carlin's hint to stay overnight, Aaron finished the takeout she had brought but before driving her back to school. Only then did he go to find Channing. While waiting for the traffic light, he glanced at his phone and remembered what Fred said about seeing Emily at the hospital. Although they had already broken up, after all these years, there were still feelings. Even if they were just ordinary friends, he should care a little. He opened WeChat. "Are you sick?" "What's up with Aaron?" Channing glanced at the man drinking alone, quietly scooting closer to Damien. As Aaron stepped through the door, he had a dark expression on his face. The lively atmosphere had quieted down somewhat. Someone got blacklisted. Knowing the truth, Damien poured oil on the fire, enjoying the spectacle. When his voice carried over, Aaron's face darkened even more. Crashed. The wine glass smashed down on the glass table. He irritably undid a couple of buttons on his shirt, exuding a touch of rage. "I said not to mention her again. Don't you understand human language?" Damien shrugged, keeping quiet after that. With the change in atmosphere, the singers sensibly fell silent, and the surrounding crowd also hushed up, afraid to say anything further. Channing choked on a mouthful of wine. So Emily was serious about this? Duke, feeling a bit dizzy from drinking, finally came to his senses and quietly asked Channing, "Has Emily gone back?" Channing shook his head. He didn't dare say anything and simply replied that he didn't know. Duke figured it out, probably hadn't returned yet. The bartender delivered 5 bottles of liquor, and someone boldly suggested, "How about playing truth or dare?" Everyone present was clever. They all understood what was implied and immediately jumped into liven up the atmosphere and ease the tension. "Dare sounds great. It's my favorite." A woman just happened to walk in. Quan, over here. We're short one person with Aaron here." The woman was pushed to sit beside Aaron. She was the club's headliner and had accompanied Aaron before. "Aaron." Aaron stood up abruptly, showing little interest. "You all play? I'm heading out first." This left the crowd stunned and Quan disappointed at losing tonight's hefty service fee. Once outside the bar, the driver asked Aaron in the back seat where he was headed. After drinking a couple of glasses of brandy, he felt dizzy. Remembering the empty villa, he said, to the company, "Aaron, why are you here? At 10 o'clock at night?" The assistant was just about to clock out. After packing up, he saw Aaron coming out of the elevator. The surprised expression on his face only added to Aaron's irritation. Usually, at this time, Emily would remind him to sleep early, worried about his irregular schedule. If he refused, she'd come over and act cute. Although he would complain, he ultimately would end up obediently lying down. Are you off work? Do you have any instructions? Aaron wanted to say no, but after not eating lunch and having a couple of drinks, a sharp pain twisted in his stomach, causing his complexion to pale. Can you pack me some coffee? After thinking for a moment, he added, from the best restaurant. The assistant was highly efficient. 20 minutes later, he delivered an exquisite meal box to Aaron. But when Aaron opened it, he couldn't help but frown. Why is it seafood coffee? The assistant looked confused. The most famous dish from Bwin Garden is seafood coffee. You, forget it. You can go. The seafood coffee was visually appealing and aromatic, with a light scent and the sweetness of seafood. But after only a few bites, he lost his appetite and set down the spoon. Aaron couldn't help but reminisce about the millet porridge Emily used to make. Damn it, he was truly obsessed. After returning from the hospital to the apartment, Emily pressed the switch on the wall and heard a series of intimate breaths. The lights brightened, revealing Alva in a sexy silk slip dress, pressed against a young man. Being affectionate, they were on the sofa, with the woman's soft, pale hands recklessly exploring beneath the boy's shirt, exposing his 8-pack ABS. Their mouths were busy as well, kissing back and forth, leaving red marks on the woman's neck, creating a sensual and chaotic atmosphere. Alva was momentarily blinded by the light and, looking a bit dazed, instinctively halted the man's attempt to kiss her. Hey? Emily, you're back. You guys should put on your clothes first. Emily's lips twitched as she turned around to give them some time to get ready. She sighed. It seemed Alva couldn't stay here long. Even the best of friends had their own privacy, and living together for extended periods was inconvenient for both. Alva, however, was generous as she playfully curved her reed lips. Showing no concern about what had just happened, she casually adjusted the strap that had slipped on her arm, put on an outer garment, and tossed the man's coat at him. A lipstick mark was left on the handsome man's face, and his eyes were slightly red. Alva soothingly patted his face, saying, "Be good. Wait for me in the bedroom." The young man obediently picked up his clothes, barely covering his chest, revealing shoulders marked with kisses, and smiled generously at Emily. "Hello. Good evening," Emily instinctively replied. "Kevin." The man smiled but didn't say anything as he went into the room. Alva poured herself a glass of red wine, took a sip, and let the sweet yet slightly bitter flavor wash over her tongue. Satisfied, she sighed before leisurely correcting herself. "This one's named Stephen, not Kevin." "Emily, where did you go to come back so late?" Alva frowned. "Did you cry?" Emily poured herself a glass of warm water, lost in thought as she said, "I went to the hospital to visit Professor David today." The two were university classmates and both students of Professor David. Alva was still in the university WeChat group and had heard about it. She sneakily glanced at Emily. Just as she was about to speak, she hesitated. After all, little Emily had been Professor David's favorite student. Others might not know, but as her dorm mate and best friend, she had witnessed firsthand the professor giving her personal guidance, feeding her project, and even including her in paper writing. At that time, Emily was still an undergraduate, and Professor David wasn't even her official mentor. Yet he was willing to provide her with so many academic resources. According to the path Professor David had planned for her, if all went well, Emily would have the chance to become the youngest PhD in biological sciences in the country within 5 years. To this day, Alva couldn't understand why Emily chose to give up her studies. Thinking of how her teacher favored her, she couldn't help but feel that some people, having gotten things too easily, just wouldn't cherish them. A genius has the right to be willful. "I heard that the professor is quite ill. How's her recovery after the surgery?" Alva asked. Emily shook her head. Alva laughed in frustration. "How did you find out about her condition when you know nothing about the patient?" "I didn't dare to go in." "Are you that cowardly?" Seeing her expression, Alva couldn't help but say, "You deserve that." Emily's eyelashes fluttered. but she remained silent. Noticing her stubborn look, Alva suddenly realized that all that food she brought in the morning was meant for the professor. Are you planning to keep doing this? She was usually brave and decisive, but now she seemed too timid to even show her face. Emily was somewhat clear-headed. He'll have to meet the professor sooner or later. Some people and some things cannot be resolved by just avoiding them. In the next moment, she looked up and asked, Alva, will you come with me to see the professor? What do you want to do? I should formally apologize for my impulsiveness and recklessness back then. I owe her that. Alva nearly choked on her drink. She coughed a couple of times, her face filled with rejection. Please spare me, sister. You know I'm terrified of her. The only course I ever failed in college was Professor David's elective. I get scared just seeing her. Besides, I'm such a nobody. The professor probably doesn't even remember who I am. I can't help you at all. Seeing her evade the topic, Emily didn't push further, but Alva's eyes sparkled mischievously, and she changed the subject. I actually have someone suitable in mind. Do you remember my cousin Donahue? Emily took a small sip of warm water and nodded. Of course I remember. Donahue, the youngest leader in the field of physics in the country, had been named the top young scientist in the world by Nature magazine last year. He had studied applied biological sciences under Professor David during his undergraduate studies and published 5 papers in 2 years, garnering great expectations from the biological community and being hailed as a genius. Later, for reasons unknown, he whimsically changed disciplines and studied physics, causing quite a stir at the time. It turned out that if someone is capable, they can succeed in whatever field they choose. Donahue had now become a significant figure in the international physics community. Emily was in the same school as Donahue, but was not in the same class, making her his junior. Upon entering school, she had already heard the legends about Donahue and later learned that he was Alva's cousin. He had been working in a physics research institute abroad and had just returned to the country 3 months ago. My cousin asked about the professor's condition a couple of days ago, but he has been busy. It's perfect that you're both going together. The more Alva spoke, the more she felt it was a good idea. So she directly called Donahue. After a couple of rings, the call connected. Emily heard a low voice on the other end, with a hint of coolness and formality. What? Alva said a few simple words. The background noise was a bit chaotic. He seemed very busy, and the call ended in less than a minute. My brother is meeting you tomorrow at 2 p.m. at West Shore Restaurant. It'll be a discussion. Alva squeezed her hand. You should get a good night's sleep today. We'll talk about the rest tomorrow. Emily nodded. Thank you. I understand. The next day, Emily left half an hour early. When she arrived at the restaurant, she looked at her watch. There were 2 minutes until 2 p.m., just at the right time. She pushed the door open, and the waiter led her a short distance before she looked up to see a man sitting by the window. He tilted his head, sipping coffee with a detached expression, dressed in a simple white shirt and black pants, wearing gold-rimmed glasses on his nose. The sunlight fell on his side profile like a self-contained oil painting. In contrast, she was in a white t-shirt and jeans, with her hair in a high ponytail and no makeup, a bit too casual. Feeling Emily's gaze, the man turned his head. Sit down. Would you like something to drink? His magnetic voice had a hint of warmth that penetrated her ears. Emily came to her senses and pulled out a chair to sit across from him. Sorry to keep you waiting. The girl's onyx-like pupils held a touch of apology. Donahue pushed his glasses up and replied nonchalantly. Not for long. I only arrived 5 minutes early. There are several data sets that need to be processed in the lab, so I can only give you 30 minutes today. Is that enough? That's enough. The waiter came over, and Emily ordered a glass of lemonade. Donahue got straight to the point. What do you want me to do when you meet Professor David? His straightforwardness was unexpected. Emily appreciated this no-nonsense attitude and slowly stated her purpose. Professor David has been discharged from the hospital, but I don't know her exact address, so I hope you can take me along to visit her. When the professor gets angry, could you help mediate? Yeah, it's harmful to get too worked up. At this point, the man seemed to slightly curve the corners of his mouth. Emily continued. I know you're busy. So you can decide on the time. Donahue nodded. All right. Then let's say 2 days from now. Emily thanked him, holding her glass of lemonade. She suddenly asked, why are you willing to help me? Donahue's dark, shiny eyes were fixed on her. After a moment, just when Emily thought he wouldn't respond, the man spoke. Because you are Emily, Professor David once said. He took a sip of coffee and spoke slowly. So far, she has 3 regrets in her life. One is that research is vast, but life is too short. The second is having no children. And the third is Emily. Emily was stunned, her fingertips digging into her palm. Donahue's somewhat sharp gaze stared at her, with a fleeting glimpse of profound scrutiny, but soon returned to a calm silence. Here's the English translation of your text. This was his first time meeting Emily, but it was the first time he had heard the name. What was so special about a girl who could make Professor David refer to her as a regret, alongside life and family? Emily felt a dryness in her throat and slightly lowered her gaze. She could even imagine the disappointment and pity in her teacher's eyes when he mentioned her. Donahue took out a piece of paper and wrote down a string of numbers. This is my phone number. Emily glanced at it, admiring the beautiful calligraphy. Here's the tiramisu you wanted. As the waiter set the item down, he couldn't help but steal a glance at the table of guests. The man had a handsome face but wore a somewhat indifferent expression, and there was a hint of impatience in his eyes. The woman across from him wore a deer haute couture little reed dress and carried a milky white Hermes bag, clearly a wealthy young lady. She seemed completely oblivious to the man's irritation and kept chatting away. Now, I heard from Aunt Zhang that your stomach isn't well. We have a doctor who specializes in treating stomach issues. Aaron played with a lighter, responding occasionally. This matchmaking dinner had been arranged by Ms. Grisella, and, since he was there, he didn't intend to make a scene. However, he had no interest in what the woman was saying. His gaze drifted elsewhere when suddenly, he froze. He straightened up abruptly. Across 4 or 5 tables, Emily was sitting opposite a man. He couldn't hear their conversation but could see the faint smile on her face. The noise around him that he had been able to tolerate suddenly became irritating. Further fueling his annoyance, Aaron sneered and turned his gaze away. I should go. Donahue was on a tight schedule, and managing to spare 30 minutes was already pushing it. Emily understood, and they both stood up. As they left the restaurant, Donahue stepped forward first, holding the door open for her, indicating that she should go first. How gentlemanly. Emily smiled. Thank you. They reached the curb, and Donahue said, my car is here. Emily nodded. See you the day after tomorrow. Standing still, she watched him leave until she finally withdrew her gaze. Just as she turned around, she unexpectedly met a pair of eyes that seemed to smile mockingly, filled with sarcasm and coldness. Found a new partner so quickly? As Aaron approached, he noticed that the woman's beautiful wavy hair had been straightened, and the color he loved had returned to pure black. She wore no makeup and no high heel. Just a plain white t-shirt, dirty simple. Yet, those eyes seemed to shine brighter than before, completely devoid of the sadness and depression of a breakup. If this was an act, Aaron had to admit she was doing quite well, so well that it successfully irritated him. Emily frowned. She knew him too well. That expression was a precursor to anger. Huh, he scoffed. But your taste is questionable. After being by my side for so many years, you should have some standard, right? You can't just settle for any Tom, Dick, or Harry. Otherwise, where do I put my pride as your ex-boyfriend? Pride? Emily suddenly found it a bit amusing, though that smile hinted at a touch of sorrow. Unfortunately, Aaron didn't notice. His mind was filled with images of Emily smiling sweetly at another man, and the more he thought about it, the angrier he became. He attributed this emotion to a male territorial instinct. Since he had once claimed this territory, even if he no longer wanted it, he wouldn't allow those inferior cats and dogs to come and urinate here. I have things to do. I'm leaving. Emily didn't want to hear any more from him. Leaving? Where can you go? Elvis' apartment? That's your only option now. But this time you're bold. You even took the checks and documents with you. All right. You want to play. Emily felt a stab in her heart. She had long been accustomed to his bad temper, even calling it erratic and violent. But hearing those words still stung. Did he think she was just playing around? Emily slowed her breathing, trying hard to adjust her emotion, and then forced a smile. First of all, Mr. Xiao and I are just ordinary friends. It's not as sordid as you think, and we've already broken up. What you think is your business. Just then, her taxi arrived. Emily opened the door and got in, saying to the driver, "Please drive." Aaron sneered. Emily was indeed getting more capable. In their argument 3 months ago, she hadn't used this tactic against him. This time, she brought another man right in front of him. How dare she? A pair of soft hands climbed onto his arm, and Feng King leaned in closer, almost unanticipatingly. "Hi. Why are you leaving without waiting for me?" The strong scent of perfume wafted over, and Aaron cowed and helped but frowned but didn't push her away. Instead, he wrapped an arm around the woman's slim waist. "What? Do you want to come with me?" Just because she could find a man. Did he not know how to find a woman? In the taxi, Emily watched the intimate scene of the man and woman in the rearview mirror and cowed at help but mock herself with a smile. So it was just Carlin. 6 years. And it had all been for nothing. Out of the corner of her eye, the taxi drove further away. And Aaron's face changed. He coldly pushed Feng King's hand away. Feng King was confused by his reaction and tried to lean in again. But the next moment, she was ruthlessly shoved aside as he left without looking back. "Yeehaw! Aaron!" The woman bit her lip in anger. Aaron got into the car, started the engine, and called Fred. Then naturally took the phone away, smiling as he said, "You never used to watch these kinds of emotional videos. Brother, aren't you at a blind date?" Aaron gritted his teeth. "Did you tell Emily about what happened at the West Bank restaurant today? Can you be smarter and not share everything with outsiders? Mom forced me into a blind date, and you didn't help to keep it under wraps. You even leaked the information to her, making her deliberately find a man to irritate me. Can't you think before you act? What a stupid thing to do." Fred was startled by his suddenly raised voice. "No. What are you talking about? When did I being inexplicably scolded?" She looked at the phone after he hung up, feeling speechless. Now what did I do? Before she could get angry for too long, the butler came over with a gift list. "Meh. Please check if these are enough." Fred glanced over the list. Everything looked good. After confirming everything was correct, she nodded in satisfaction. "These gifts are for Professor David. Pay close attention while preparing them. There must be no mistakes. Understood?" "Yes, Miss Emily. This is the best property near B University. Look at the lighting and the environment. So many people are waiting to rent it. If you don't decide soon, you might miss out on this place." The real estate agent enthusiastically introduced the property as Emily looked around. The apartment was large, only a 2-bedroom layout, and the decor was over 10 years old. It was old and shabby. Not to mention it was a traditional walk-up. But the advantages were clear. It was close to B University, right next to the library, and the transportation was convenient. Most importantly, the lighting and environment were indeed quite good. If she wanted to start over, this was definitely the best place. "Okay, you'll rent it." She directly signed a 1-year lease in one go. When Elva returned, she saw the suitcase sprawled open on the floor. "Are you moving out?" Emily was packing her clothes. "Yeah, I found a place." Elva exclaimed. "Aaron came to see you? Not bad. At least this time you held out for a week. It's time to let those scummy guys know they can't take advantage of you and think they're the best thing since sliced bread." Emily paused, meeting her gaze. "Bye. This time, I won't go back." Alva was momentarily stunned and suddenly started to believe her. Over the 6 years, she had watched Emily hide her true self bit by bit for Aaron, her light gradually dimming as she became a housewife revolving around a man. No, not just any housewife. She was a bona fide original partner. What was Emily? That scoundrel Aaron was purely wasting her life. Good riddance. It should have happened long ago. There are so many men in this world. "Yeah," Emily nodded. "So this time, are you absolutely sure? You're not going to run back to him in a couple of days, right?" Emily cowed and helped but laughed. On her way back, she stopped by the market. The apartment was old, and much of the paint was peeling off the walls. The furniture looked like antique pieces that had aged with time. She planned to buy some eco-friendly paint to give the place a fresh coat. "Excuse me, could you help me?" The driver helped her take several large buckets out of the trunk. Emily looked up. The 7th floor was a climb she'd have to make herself to repaint the wall. She also needed to move the furniture around, making it a good opportunity to adjust the layout. She opened the door and started moving the buckets of paint upstairs one by one. The buckets were heavy, and Emily huffed and puffed, taking breaks after every couple of flights until she finally moved all the paint upstairs. Panting heavily, after resting for a few minutes and washing her face in the bathroom, her strength gradually returned. She picked up the painting tools and made some gestures toward the wall, then rolled up her sleeves and got to work. Emily hadn't experienced this hands-on feeling in a long time. During her years with Aaron, while she didn't have to do everything for herself, she hadn't done any physical labor. Even when he was just starting his business and money was tight, they always hired a cleaning lady for the weekly tidying up. After finishing one bucket of paint, Emily rubbed her slightly sore way. After years of living in comfort, she really was used to this. She went out into the hallway, intending to bring in the remaining paint. Unfortunately, her foot was a step too fast, and she kicked over a bucket. She managed to clean it up quickly, but a small puddle spilled in front of the neighbor's door. She hurried to grab a mop and was halfway through cleaning when the previously closed door suddenly opened. Their eyes met, and she was about to apologize when she unexpectedly saw a familiar face. "You live here too? Is that you?" They both spoke at almost the same time. Donahue glanced down, then shifted his gaze to her behind. "The person moving in today is you?" Emily hadn't expected such a coincidence. "As you can see, from today on, we're neighbors." Donahue's gaze shifted. He chose to live here because it was close to the lab and the university, making it convenient for his daily classes and experiments. But why was Emily here? It was clear that the environment here wasn't suitable for a girl to live in. Just the absence of an elevator ruled it out as a choice for young people. Seeing he hadn't moved, Emily thought he was concerned about her making a mess in the hallway. "And sorry, I spilled some paint just now. You'll clean it up right away." She hurried her actions and soon had everything cleaned up. As she was about to head downstairs, she pointed to the garbage next to him. "Since you're going downstairs, can I help you take this down?" Donahue didn't refuse. In return, he took a folding ladder from his home. "If you're going to paint, this will be more convenient." "Thank you." With the ladder, her painting efficiency increased significantly. In just one morning, she repainted all the peeling wall. It instantly looked clean and neat. Afterward, she chose a sofa and a set of tables and chairs at the furniture store and lightly arranged her room. Finally, it was complete. After finishing all this, it was almost dark outside. Emily stretched her shoulders and looked around. The warm yellow light spilled in, sweeping away the old, dusty atmosphere. Her home was refreshed and looked like two different worlds compared to when she first arrived. Looking at her little nest, the bed was adorned with her favorite light-colored cotton duvet. The sunlight had been shining on it all day, exuding a faint, pleasant scent of laundry detergent. The green plants she bought in the afternoon lined up in front of the window, radiating a cute vitality. The lazy black and white block sofa was filled with plush, well-stuffed pillows, making it perfect for leaning on while reading. So comfortable. It could be said that the space was small but complete with everything one needed. "Is this your new home? It looks pretty nice," Alva remarked in the video. "Your hands-on skills are still impressive. You really are the powerhouse who single-handedly renovated our dorm back in the day." "Emily? Well, of course I would take care of the place where I live." "Emily, you're stronger than I thought. You found a new target so quickly." Alva had guessed a bit when she heard the new address, but she didn't mention it. "I'm really happy that you can go back." After hanging up, Emily felt a pang of melancholy. She realized too late, but fortunately, she could still make amends. It was 6 o'clock. After a busy day, Emily hadn't eaten yet. The fridge had toast, fresh vegetables, and some milk. It was getting late, so she quickly cooked a simple porridge and made a sandwich. As she was packing her things, She thought for a moment and decided to pack an extra portion of both the porridge and the sandwich. Donahue was busy revising the experimental data for his paper when he heard a knock on the door. He left his study to open it. "Thank you for the folding ladder. And here's the dinner I made for you. If you don't mind. Just eat a bit?" Under the light, the girl's eyes were bright and clear. Donahue was taken aback for a moment before reaching out to accept the item. Murmuring a thank you. Back in his bedroom, he adjusted the data again, comparing it with the results from previous experiment. By the time he finished all the revision, it was already 8 o'clock. His stomach was empty and growling. Habitually, he took out his phone, ready to order takeout. His eyes casually caught a glimpse of the bag under the desk lamp. He opened it, finding it covered with an insulation layer, so the sandwich and porridge were still warm. He picked up the sandwich and took a bite. Suddenly stunned. The aroma of bacon combined with the freshness of the vegetable, and in between was a perfectly fried egg, fresh and sweet, which made him want to eat more. After finishing the sandwich, he took a spoonful of the millet porridge. Its simple and delicate texture was better than most porridge he had ever bought, and with a few bites, his stomach started to warm up. Donahue raised his eyebrows in delight. Those who knew him well would understand that this was a state of enjoyment. Not bad at cooking. Before long, the porridge and sandwich were cleaned up completely. At 10 o'clock, Donahue finished his night run and encountered Emily on his way back. She had changed into casual clothes and tied her hair in a bun, still standing out in the crowd. "Out for a walk. You went for a night run." They both spoke at the same time. Emily nodded. "Yeah, just out for a stroll and to pick up a package." He slowed his pace, adjusted his breathing, and walked alongside her. "Thanks for dinner today. It was really good," Emily replied. "You helped me away, so I should be the one to say thank you." There was a children's park across the gravel path, and the sounds of nearby kids were particularly clear. "It's pretty lively here." At Aaron's villa, it's always eerily quiet. Donahue followed her gaze. He had lived there for over 2 months but rarely paid attention to such things. Remembering the message he received when he left, he spoke lightly. "I just asked a junior. Professor David has been resting at home lately. I plan to visit tomorrow at 10. Is that okay for you?" 10 tomorrow? That's too soon. Just as she was about to step forward, she suddenly felt a bit anxious about meeting a professor she hadn't seen in 6 years. "Is there a problem?" "No." Donahue glanced at her profile. Although he sensed a change in her emotion, he didn't pry. He didn't like to invade others' privacy. They parted at the door, each entering their own home. Emily took a distracted shower and lay down, trying to drift off to sleep. In the middle of the night, it started to drizzle lightly. She tossed and turned, not getting much rest at all. She got up early, had breakfast, and waited for Donahue. At 10 o'clock, a knock sounded precisely on time. She immediately opened the door, already looking tittied up. Donahue paused for 2 seconds. "Ready to go?" Emily led the way, with the man railing a step behind. Compared to her anxiety the night before, she seemed to have returned to normal. Donahue drove up, and Emily took the passenger seat. On the way, they passed a fruit supermarket. Emily suddenly said, "Could you stop for a moment? Just for 2 minutes? I want to go buy some fruit." "Fruit?" "Yeah, for the professor." Donahue held the steering wheel, a bit puzzled. "Is it really necessary to go through all that trouble?" Emily raised an eyebrow, suddenly finding it a bit funny. "Are you usually so bare-handed when visiting someone?" Donahue nodded honestly. Emily silently gave him a thumbs-up impression. Maybe powerful people were just so unconcerned with the little details. That being said, the man still pulled over to the side. David lived on Huanshan Road, not far from B University. The small Western-style houses had a blend of Chinese and Western design, with simple yet elegant independent entrances. After passing through a grove of maple trees, the estate came into view. It had been 6 years. Emily tightened her grip on the seatbelt, glancing at the fruit basket at her feet, feeling a surge of fear. Donahue sensed something. "Aren't you getting out?" Emily bit her lip. "I want to wait a bit." The man looked at her for 2 seconds before nodding. "Then I'll go in first." Emily was grateful he didn't ask anything. Watching him leave, she took a deep breath, unbuckled her seatbelt, and got out of the car. In this season, flowers were blooming everywhere. As she entered the small yard, a faint floral scent wafted in the breeze. Green little vegetables grew along the railing, likely because the owner was ill and no one was there to tend to them. Looking wilted, before she even entered, Emily could hear the professor's voice, causing her heart to tremble slightly as she hurried to catch up with Donahue. "Professor." David set down the latest issue of a biology journal, adjusting his reading glasses. "Oh, Winby? What brings you here?" Donahue stepped forward to support her as they walked inside. "Just came to check on you. Are you feeling better?" "A little issue. But there's no need for all of you to come over one by one." She patted his hand. "You all have worried about me too much. I'm fine." "Really?" Donahue hesitated for a moment. "I brought someone with me today." Then naturally took the phone away, smiling as he said, "You never used to watch these kind of emotional videos?" David asked, looking puzzled. Following his gaze, Emily appeared at the entrance, standing obediently with her head down, like a child who had done something wrong. David's pupils trembled, and he instinctively took the steps forward. But the astonishment and faint joy in his eyes quickly turned into a complicated and deliberate indifference. "What are you doing here?" He had a stern expression. Teacher Emily was at a loss. David's voice hardened, and his face remained expressionless. Who was it that insisted on pursuing love? Who said they could do anything for love? Emily pressed her lips together, tears streaming down her face. "Teacher, I'm sorry for disappointing you." "Em?" David rarely looked so serious. "And I was wrong." After a pause, she whispered, "Is it too late?" Finally David sighed, his expression gradually softening. "Do you know how long I've waited for you?" 6 years. A full 6 years. Emily replied, tears welling in her eyes as she choked up. He didn't know had the teacher been waiting for her all this time. As long as you understand. Yet behind this realization lay so much grievance and hardship that David couldn't help but feel heartbroken for her. Emily felt a lump in her throat and could no longer hold back. She threw herself into his embrace. Teacher David's dry, soft palm patted her back, and his heart slowly softened a bit. All right, you're all grown up now. Yet you still cry. You're going to embarrass yourself." Donahue quietly watched from the side. When the two embraced and reconciled, he silently left the living room to the balcony, giving them space to talk. After years apart, David couldn't help but ask Emily about her current situation, but refrained from mentioning her romantic life. The fact that she could say "I was wrong" today already indicated that the path she had chosen back then or the personas unreliable. Given that, why would he bring up this child's scars again? Emily replied, "I rented an apartment near the school and have started reviewing for your graduate program." At the end of the year, David's eyes lit up, and overwhelming joy seemed to engulf her. "Really? Is that true?" He even confirmed it twice. "Yeah," Emily nodded, unable to look at her teacher. The path that had been laid out was one she hadn't taken, and now she wanted to start over. This should have happened long ago. You mustn't trick me. You promised you'd apply for my graduate program. Finally, the slots this year weren't wasted. Emily was a bit taken aback, although she suspected Professor David might have reserved a spot for her when she went to visit him. It was hard to believe now that it was confirmed. "Emily. Oh, Emily. What do you deserve, teacher? Whether I can get in is another matter. You don't raise your hopes too high." David replied, "As long as you want to. I know your capabilities better than anyone. Unless you deliberately perform poorly to mess with this old lady." How could that be? Emily was speechless. "It's getting late. You and Winby, hey?" "Where's Winby?" Donahue came in from the balcony. "It's this late already. You should stay for lunch with your sister. I'll cook my..." Upon hearing this, Emily's face changed, and Donahue looked quite complex as well. You really don't have to go through the trouble. I can cook." It was that Emily was ungrateful, but she was afraid the kitchen would end up a disaster if the teacher cooked. David awkwardly coughed, clearly aware of his cooking skills, but in front of his students, he couldn't lose face, so he mumbled, "I'm all right. I'm still recovering from my illness." Donahue rolled up his sleeves and followed suit. It'll help. David looked back and forth between the two, a deeper smile forming on his face. The refrigerator was packed with fresh ingredients. The professor had just been discharged from the hospital and was still recovering. So Emily planned to make something light. What do you need me to do? Donahue asked. Emily glanced at the basin of vegetables. Can you wash the vegetables? Shouldn't be too hard. Emily made some room. Although the man's vegetable washing skills weren't proficient, he didn't slack off. He cleaned the dirt off the greens very thoroughly. Emily casually asked, do you have any dietary restrictions? No. What about taste? Anything's fine. You're quite easy to please. She muttered quietly. Unlike Aaron, who was picky and had a lot of demands. Donahue didn't respond. To him, food was just something that provided energy. He didn't care about its taste. Done washing. Emily looked over at the neatly washed red peppers and Shanghai green, perfectly arranged as if done by someone with obsessive-compulsive tendencies. What are you laughing at? Donahue asked. Confused. Emily cleared her throat. Nothing. You can head out for a bit. Okay. Donahue dried his hands and nodded slightly. Emily prepared a large spread of food. Mostly light dishes that David loved and could eat. I'm impressed that you still remember the old lady remarked. After finishing the meal, Emily voluntarily began to clean up the dishes. Donahue joined in to help. Standing in the warm yellow light, the man's shadow was elongated, from Emily's perspective. His finely crafted profile resembled a head sculpture from ancient Greece, with sharp features. David stood at the doorframe. Emily, how did you meet your senior brother? Donahue was her most promising disciple, while Emily was his favorite student. A long time ago. She had thought about introducing the two but didn't expect they would have met first due to some twists of fate. Just, a voice came from outside Sport Inster David. You have a visitor. David turned and went out to the living room, where he saw a girl standing up from the sofa with a smile. Hello, Professor. I'm Fred. I visited you in the hospital before and asked about this year's graduate admission. David nodded. I remember. Please. Have it? Fred's smile brightened a bit more. I heard you've been resting at home lately. So I brought you some supplements. David discreetly glanced at the gift box on the table. Bird's nest. And quartzite. His smile faded a little. Fred, last time I mentioned the graduate student spots this year. David interrupted. Thanks. I appreciate the thought. But you should take these back. As for graduate student, I recruit every year, and the competition is fierce. Whether you can get in depends entirely on your real ability. Fred was taken aback. The professor didn't say this. When they were in the hospital last time she had said things like there's a chance. You can give it a try. And keep going. So why was it different today? Professor. Jung. Sorry. But I have a guest here. So I can't keep you any longer. I'll have Xiao Wang help you move your things to the car. It was so obvious that he was sending her off. How could Fred not hear it? She didn't know where the problem lay. And as she left, she felt dazed and accidentally bumped into someone. Emily? She exclaimed. Emily was in a simple white t-shirt, wearing a big, floral apron that looked a bit out of place, and she was holding a bag of black trash. What a coincidence. Emily was also a bit surprised but quickly put on a smile to greet her. Although Fred had the spoiled and arrogant air of a wealthy young lady, she wasn't overly rude and still had the necessary politeness. However, their relationship remained at this level. They couldn't be as close as she was with Elva. You. Fred looked her up and down. Are you working as a maid now? Emily? Didn't your brother give you any money to use? Oh my god. How tacky. I can't take it anymore with him, she said as she stomped out in her high heel, pulling out her phone. It was that she was speaking up for Emily. She thought Emily was stupid for being a lapdog. The main issue was that her brother's behavior was too much. It was like going to a fancy restaurant and not leaving a tip. Fred felt super embarrassed. Big brother, I really can't hold back anymore to say you. Just as the call connected, Fred was about to vent. I'm busy. I don't have time to deal with you. It's not who's making a scene. The one being unreasonable is you. How can you be so stingy? Don't you know that stingy men are as disgusting as rats? If you want to lose your mind, find someone else. What was he even talking about? Fred didn't care. Emily at least washes your clothes and cooks for you. And even plays with you, sleeps with you. How can you not spend a dime? Forcing her to work as a maid to make money. Do you still care about your reputation? There was a moment of silence on the other end. Who are you talking about? Emily. What does maid mean? Bud recounted everything she had seen. This time, you really went too far. A lapdog is still a dog. Don't abuse small animals. Whatever Fred said afterward, Aaron didn't hear any of it. What echoed in his ears were Emily. Maid. Making money. It seemed that even though she had cashed that 50 million check, she didn't dare actually use it. He loosened his tie, his gaze dark and unreadable, with an expression that was neither good nor bad, but rather enigmatic. He had thought she could manage well on her own after leaving so decisively, but it turned out, without him, she was even struggling to survive. What are you dazed about? It's your turn. Duke reminded him, pointing at the dice cup in his hand. I'm not playing anymore. Aaron picked up his suit jacket and grabbed his car key. Ready to leave. Were you the one who wanted to gather? Duke looked bewildered. Not anymore. I've things to do. This time he probably had to ask him to come pick him up. Right? Aaron waited in the car for a while. And besides to work calls and a bunch of work messages, he didn't receive the call he wanted. He decided not to wait any longer and drove directly to Elva's apartment. Emily had no family in the capital and always ran to Elva's place whenever they fought, so he had to go pick her up quite a few times. Therefore, he arrived without needing navigation. Aaron? Just as he got out of the car, someone called him. He turned around to see Elva with a young boy, presumably on their way home. What are you doing here? Elva looked at him with a hint of wariness. Where's Emily? What do you want? I'm asking where Emily is. His tone was tinged with impatience. Elva was bold and carefree. Aaron's impression of her was quite average, even negative. He had reminded Emily to keep her distance from her to avoid being a bad influence. However, the usually obedient Emily hadn't listened to him on this matter. Elva didn't coddle him. Get it straight. Big guy. You two have already broken up. What right do you have to ask me about her? Aaron sneered. How many times have we broken up? Can you count them on one hand? You stopping me now is meaningless. Don't play the villain for nothing. In any case, Emily would always end up coming back to him, begging for forgiveness. Elva was amused by his arrogance and presumptuous. In your eyes, is Emily even less than a dog? You take her when you want and toss her aside when you don't. She's not important and not worth cherishing. Aaron didn't want to listen to her nonsense. If you won't tell me, I'll go upstairs and find her myself. At that moment, the young boy beside Elva stepped forward, blocking him with his body. Forcibly entering someone's residence is against the law. Aaron didn't even glance at him, his gaze fixed directly on Elva as he coldly nodded. Okay, I'll remember that. But your obstruction won't matter. She'll still come back to me like a dog, begging. With that, Aaron got into his car and drove off without looking back. Elva was so furious that she jumped in place, cursing loudly. What kind of person is this? Scumbag? Trash? Don't poop. It's driving me insane. I'll tell you, she said, grabbing the little pup by the collar. This time Emily absolutely won't go back. Absolutely not. The little pup frantically tried to soothe her. Yes. Yeah. Don't get angry, but was it even possible? His man sounded so resolute and certain. He must have been fully prepared. He glanced at Elva and thought, if only she could be as devoted to men as her best friend. Stop. He didn't dare to dream of such things. In the car, Aaron received a call. He was in a bad mood, and his tone was cold. What's up, baby? I recently found a treasure shop that is super fat crabs. Tomorrow's Saturday. Let's go eat. Okay? Carlin's bright, cheerful voice came from the other end. So she was catering to his taste. Plus, they hadn't contacted each other since last night, which made her uneasy. This anxiety pushed her to cast aside her pride and call him. In the past, Aaron usually arranged dates, and she would just shyly decline before nodding in agreement. Things were different lately. He'd contacted her less, and his messages had become brief, sometimes even going unanswered. When she asked, he would just say he was busy. For example, right now, Saturday? I'm busy. No time. If you have something to do on Saturday, we can go on Sunday. Carlin tightened her grip on her phone, her lips turning a bit pale. I said I'm busy. Let's leave it at that. Aaron hung up. Carlin stared at the call that had ended, and the feeling of anxiety washed over her again. No, after finally becoming Aaron's official girlfriend? As the sun set, Donahue and Emily bid farewell to David. Why has the time gone by so quickly? Professor David looked at the sky reluctantly. Stay and have dinner before you go? No, I still need to stop by the lab, Donahue replied. Emily shook her head as well. There'll be many opportunities in the future. All right, you both head back. Be careful on the road, and come to see me more often when you have time, okay? The last part was directed at Emily. She nodded eagerly. By the way, there are 2 documents and 3 books on the table. Take them back. They're the ones you left before. She specialized in bioinformatics and had researched algorithms. Before graduation, she had only written half of her paper for submission to SCI, and the teacher had kept it for her. Emily's eyes trembled slightly. Teacher, I'll write. All right. Hurry up and go. Oh, the lunchbox on the table is already cleaned. Don't forget it. Emily was taken aback. David frowned. You're already at the door to the ward and don't even think to come in and check on me. Leaving behind a lunchbox, making me almost ovary. Emily blushed. It won't happen again on the way back. Emily knew Donahue was busy, so she didn't have the audacity to ask him to drop her off downstairs, suggesting instead to get out at the entrance of the university. It was only a few steps away, and she could treat it as a walk. Donahue nodded. All right. When Aaron saw the figure sitting in front of the villa, his heart suddenly skipped a beat. But soon, after getting a clear look at the woman's appearance, he felt dejected. Carlin. Aaron. You're back? The girl stood up, surprised, her bright black eyes shining like stars as she looked at him. What are you doing here? I'm waiting for you. I called you during the day, but you said you were busy, so I could only come after you finished work. I hope I didn't disturb you? The girl asked carefully, her eyes showing some nervousness. No. Aaron slowly shook his head. Then that's good. Her smile reappeared, but it quickly fell again. Aaron. I'm hungry. Carlin lowered her head shyly. Her cheeks puffed up. Let's go. I'll take you to eat. Okay? The 2 went to a Western restaurant. Aaron barely touched his food, while Carlin enjoyed the meal the whole time. She might have sensed his bad mood, so she spoke less than usual. Are you full? Carlin nodded. Let's go. I'll take you back to school. But the restaurant was not far from the Institute of Technology, and they arrived in less than 10 minutes. Pulling over at the curb, Carlin paused momentarily while getting out of the car, then turned to Aaron. Aren't you going to walk me inside? Aaron nodded. All right. At the entrance of the Institute of Technology, it was just the right time for evening classes to finish, and many students were coming out to look for food. Carlin was recognized as the campus beauty, so her appearance attracted a lot of curious glances, especially since the campus beauty was walking with a handsome and elite man. Carlin seemed to be oblivious to the discussions around her, turning back to look at Aaron with a radiant smile. When are you going to meet my roommate? They're curious about you. No. Should be that the entire Institute of Technology was curious about the pure campus beauty's official boyfriend. In the past, when that woman was still by his side and he hadn't been officially recognized, Carlin didn't dare to flaunt him. But things were different now. He had promised her a title, and now he had delivered. She didn't need to hide anymore. Aaron remained silent. Or rather, he wasn't interested in the meet my roommates that the girl spoke of. However, Carlin seemed unaware of his indifference, continuing to smile and say, It's so nice, Aaron. Every second with you is so happy. After saying this, she suddenly jumped in front of Aaron. When the man looked slightly surprised, she jumped up, her ponytail swung behind her, creating a sweet arc, and then a soft kiss landed on his thin lips. Whoa, gasps erupted around them. It turns out the rumors are true. The campus beauty really has a partner. Oh my gosh. It's just like a scene from a drama. Carlin is so beautiful. And her boyfriend is super handsome. This is a match made in heaven. They're a perfect pair. I'm shipping this. At that moment, Emily was standing at the back of the crowd watching. It was that she wanted to see. It was just that the commotion caught her attention as she passed by. What a coincidence. Aaron came back to his senses, looking at the girl smiling gently. And suddenly a pair of similarly bright, sparkling eyes flashed through his mind. Years ago, at the graduation ceremony of the university, a girl had looked at him the same way. Her eyes were radiant. And her smile was like a flower. Aaron, I choose you. I have no regret. A buried memory that he thought had long died suddenly resurfaced, striking at his soul. He instinctively took a step back, creating distance between himself and Carlin. Aaron? The girl looked puzzled. Aaron, it's late. You should go in first. No. Carlin shook her head. And the next, she stood on tiptoe, blushing. I want to spend more time with you. Before she could get closer, Aaron turned the table, wrapping an arm around her slender waist and kissing her forcefully. Yes. The crowd erupted again. What the heck, so awesome. Wow, wait, how much must he love her? Emily watched the scene unfold, gripping her book so tightly that her fingers turned pale. It turned out that the heart could still ache, but her expression was frighteningly calm, almost numb. She thought to herself, it would just take getting used to. Quitting smoking has withdrawal symptoms, let alone loving someone for 6 years. Emily didn't linger any longer. She turned to leave, needing to go back to her studies. Standing among the crowd, Aaron seemed to feel something and turned to take a glance. A vaguely familiar figure flashed past his line of sight. But the next second, their fingers intertwining affectionately. Carlin, what are you looking at? Aaron withdrew his gaze. Nothing. After walking her to the dormitory entrance, the man prepared to leave, but Carlin held onto his hand, not willing to let go, her eyes full of attachment. It's still early. Can't you stay with me a little longer? Aaron patted her head. Be good. I'll pick you up this weekend. Under the streetle twilight, the man stood with his back to the light, casting a shadow on his face, which accentuated his deep features and defined contours. Carlin's eyes sparkled with a hint of innocent charm. Aaron, can I go home with you today? Every adult probably understood what this meant. Aaron paused, slightly, a complex expression rising in his eyes. You're still young. Wait a bit longer. Carlin was a little taken aback, but she felt a flicker of joy inside. His reluctance to touch her indicated that he cherished her and was after immediate pleasure, but rather wanted a long-term relationship. Okay. I have things to do, so I'll leave first. Aaron raised his hand to check his watch. Carlin nodded obediently. Okay. He'll bring you some millet porridge tomorrow. He didn't respond. In a daze, he lost focus again. In the room, the computer was on, and Emily's fingers typing on the keyboard suddenly slowed down. The image of their kiss flashed in her mind, and she pursed her lips. She got up and went to the bathroom, splashing cold water on her face 3 times before her mind gradually returned to clarity. The past she had long discarded didn't need to be dwelled on. The pressing matter: Anne was preparing for the exam. She didn't have much time left. Back at the computer, Emily opened the 2 books that Professor David had given her. One was a textbook on biopharmaceutics, and the other was more like notes, filled with David's annotation. In addition, there was a USB drive containing a paper she had abandoned during her undergraduate studies. Originally, it was meant for her graduate studies, but later, back then, she could spend 3 days and nights in the lab, eating and sleeping less, just to collect and organize data, which took her almost half a year. Each step of proving and solving was pursued meticulously. Although she later gave up on the combined master's and doctoral program to focus on taking care of Aaron's daily needs, Emily hadn't completely set aside this paper. Over the years, she hadn't done much besides 2 things. One was being a free nanny for Aaron, and the other was perfecting this paper. What Professor David provided was only the content she completed during her undergraduate years. The latter part, Emily retrieved from her computer, and the 2 parts combined formed a complete paper. At that moment, it felt as if the hazy first half of her life collided with the suddenly clear second half. creating a complete version of herself. Busy until dawn broke, Emily looked at her finished manuscript and decided to seize the opportunity. Submitting it to one of the top 3 academic journals in the world, representing the highest level of human natural science research, Emily was very confident about her submission. After all, there were so many disciplines, so many fields, and so many prominent researchers worldwide. What was she worth? But she still wanted to give it a try. Just before dawn, Emily closed her computer and hurried to catch up on sleep. At 8 o'clock, washed up, had breakfast, and then took her study material. To her surprise, as soon as she stepped outside, she bumped into Donahue, who had just returned. It was raining outside, and the umbrella he had closed was still dripping wet. "Good morning. You didn't pull an all-nighter, did you?" Donahue, "Yeah. I need to rush out some data for an experiment." He had just returned from the lab to grab something and had to hurry back. "Here, take this." Emily handed him a cup of hot milk. "It'll warm you up. You got wet in the rain. Remember to change your clothes." She pointed to his shoulder, and Donahue turned his head to realize that part was damp. "Okay, it'll go now." Emily smiled and turned to head downstairs. By 9 o'clock, the library was already filled with people. She put away her umbrella, and just before entering, a familiar voice suddenly called out. Emily Fred had come specifically to visit the school leaders regarding her graduate school application. Just as she was passing by the library, it started to rain. So she found herself temporarily stuck here, unexpectedly running into an acquaintance. "Why are you at the library? Another part-time job? You must be short on cash lately." "Don't worry. I've already talked to my brother about it and told him to be a bit more generous in the future. So, you should quit these part-time jobs as soon as possible. Taking care of my brother is more important than anything else. I heard he had another stomach issue yesterday. And you, Freda? Who are you talking to?" Before Fred could finish, a voice suddenly interrupted her. A tall, elegant middle-aged woman was walking toward them. As she got closer, it became clear that she was wearing this year's new spring haute couture from Brancy. Her well-maintained face showed no obvious wrinkle, and she was carrying a rare Hermes Kelly bag. Grisella approached her daughter and glanced over. Isn't this her son's cheap little girlfriend?" After looking Emily up and down, her already skeptical expression turned even more disdainful. Wearing a t-shirt and jeans, with no makeup and unkempt hair, she really was unpresentable. Grisella glanced back at the library and then at the 2 books in Emily's hand, her gaze deepening. "Miss Emily, what a coincidence." She emphasized the word coincidence, implying that to please her, even such a clumsy chance encounter could be staged. "You've put in a lot of effort." Grisella sighed, but as the saying goes, a monkey in clothes, no matter how well dressed, is still not a human. You should save these tricks for the future. In not buying it, since we've run into each other today, I'd ought mind being a bit clearer. Are you I could never marry you. However, considering that you've taken care of his daily needs over the year, even if there's no merit, there's still some effort involved. After he gets married, a place will be reserved for you by his side. As for anything else, don't expect too much. Staying within your limits is the key to longevity. Understand?